Hi, I'm Kim Lincoln, and I'm here today with a colleague, Mary Beth Brown, and we're going to continue together a conversation that I initiated in one of my other videos on the YouTube channel, which was about giving up the struggle and the talk around surrender. So we're going to have a lively discussion to examine what that means in real life. Thank you. So, Mary Beth.
Yes, so, I don't know if those watching this what their interpretations might be about giving up. I know in your book you talk about your son's reaction, that's giving up is a bad thing. Being vulnerable is essentially a bad thing. And
Right.
So I think sharing what this means in your work for someone like me that came into it without your perspective, I don't think it's a simple idea, but it's extremely critical to making a change in the way we approach things.
Right. The surrender in this work makes all the difference. It's otherwise it's driven by automatic response. It's driven by what we already know. And it's that surrendering process that allows us to access deeper knowledges of our being so that we can be informed in a very different way in our life. The way that we're used to doing it, right, is the straight A student trying really hard.
Right. I mean, you were a dancer. I was an athlete, a rower, and so getting things right time after time, it was perfection. And we even had a saying in rowing: "No strain, no pain, no gain." Right. So, what was remarkable about coming into contact with your work was, I'm thinking mindfulness, maybe a meditation discipline, sitting up for long periods of time without moving or a straight back, whatever it was.
Right.
Your invitation with this was to actually let whatever is here be here, which meant letting yourself rest.
Right. Like in class, people are allowed to lie down.
Right.
Take care of yourself.
So, the real difference for me here is, I know we've heard in spiritual traditions, you can hear artists talk about this, that at some point when you let go, there's another force that comes in that carries you along, whether it's your muse or your idea of God.
Right.
So how do you actually access that? Is that just for those who have some kind of special relationship? Or, what I learned is that with application of your approach and the tools that you provide, you actually can learn to tap into that. And I would just call it without having any kind of spiritual tradition involved, it really doesn't matter what the perspective is, but anyone can have access to resilience.
That's right.
And it doesn't come from more effort.
Right.
And straight A student, athlete, it was a turning things on its head, that actually if I could allow myself to rest, I would actually gain access to that source in myself of resilience. And so, we all want to make things work. We wouldn't be thinking about this kind of work or pick up this book if we didn't
Right.
want to make improvements or
Right.
become a better person or maybe relieve pain. But the interesting thing was just let it be.
Right.
And then things actually happen.
Right. By not interfering with what was habit. And we don't even know we're reacting out habit. And so the first is the pause. When we catch ourselves in the reaction or, the reactivity, noticing just the direction that reactivity goes. Does it go out, or does my reactivity go in toward myself? The moment we can identify what we're doing, and then also allow that awareness immediately to presence where we're not. So if I'm reacting and I'm throwing my energy out, and there's this whole thrust energetically, I want to be aware of what's behind me. Well, it's usually nothing. And the moment I catch that, an organic kind of adjustment arises. When we can do ourselves that favor with that kind of adjustment, it is slowly building a ground where we can include more awareness, more sensory perception. Everything begins to open. And just that in itself is a very simple practice.
And I think, I think of Viktor Frankl. I think he's the one that said between stimulus and response is freedom.
Right.
So the actual mechanism of that, so something happens in the world and I have a reaction to it, whatever it might be, that pause in between those two things. So someone looks at me the wrong way, what choice do I make? We hear people say make good choices and that kind of thing. Well, the trick is to slow everything down so you can have some time between the stimulus in your world and your personal response to it, and then actually look at how you respond before you respond. But in between there's rest. And so, I've heard these concepts before, but the difference is you actually taught me how to do it, how to use my body and my mind in helpful ways that don't accelerate the reactivity or to the stimulus, but actually help me have more command without effort. It's a paradox, but without effort, I have learned more composure and have taken more responsibility for how I react to the things that come to me from whichever direction.
Right.
Even from my own world, in my own head, my own reactivity to my own ego. So I guess the thing I want to get across is if people are new to this and they pick up the book, there's something really dramatically different about not just the concept of stimulus response or reactivity, but actually there's a way to learn how to master that process through working with Kim and understanding what she has here in this book.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And yes, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Lots of videos. Some are actually teaching a couple of the exercises that are in the book. And I love talking with you, Mary Beth. Thank you for sharing your perspective.
You taught me so much. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.